Hi there. My name is Michael Despenis, and I wanted to give you a little bit of background about the presentation that I do that's called The American Dream, the World's Nightmare. Now, the goal of this presentation is to help put a variety of ecological crises and disasters and problems that are out there and put them in a broader context and show that they are actually just symptoms of a more profound issue. And so I try to start by giving people a little bit of background about myself, to explain how I got there, and discuss how I worked overseas for 17 years in international relief and development. And the nature of my work was all about working with societies to help them develop. And the model for development was the United States and Europe. And I intuitively felt that this was not sustainable. So over the years I've done lots and lots of research to try and find out if that was in fact the case. And there's a lot of data and theories out there that this is not true. And so based on that, I put together these presentations to try and get that message out there. And so, again, the point of the presentation is to try and give people a share with them the sense of urgency that I have about this problem, and to give them a sense of the scale and the scope of this problem, help them understand how we got here, and then sort of point some potential solutions on how we can avoid disaster. So I start the presentation by looking at exponential growth, which is sort of the underlying driving force behind many of the problems that we have. And so I think it's key that people understand this, and it helps them then when they hear news and talking about growth in economics and virtually in every sector of our society, starting to be able to put that in some context. And then from there I talk about the whole idea that my thesis is that the impact of human society is getting on the scale where life support systems can no longer support it on the planet. And so a simple equation of impact equals population times consumption, and then I try and work through that and show what's happening on the right side of the equation in terms of population, showing that it's a dramatic example of exponential growth. Then looking at what's going on the consumption side, again very quickly just showing that it's another example of exponential growth. And then saying, okay, so we see on this side of the equation things are growing dramatically, so what's the impact? And then I just run through a series of examples to try and show people that we have a lot of flashing lights going on. So we look at food production and what the trends are there. We look at fisheries, another important source of proteins. We look at water. We look at global warming, which many people feel in and of itself is the greatest threat to life on the planet. But this is only, yet again, just a symptom of a broader problem. So I talk about global warming and the range of symptoms and impacts we're going to see from that, and how important that is in and of itself. The impact on the biodiversity of life. And then I make the link, okay, that's a lot of bad news. What does it have to do with me as Joe American or Josephine American? And so I try and give people a sense of the impact that we have, because of the size of our population and the level at which we consume and how inefficiently we consume. So I provide a series of slides on this and try and give some examples that really drive home the idea to help make these abstract numbers seem a little more real. And then I have a series here that looks at, we represent 5% of the world population, and then that's sort of our fair share, and showing how we consume much, much more than our fair share. And then I sort of raises a very profound issue of ethics, justice, and both from the impact of the United States and then also globally, of the global rich. And then from here I go and say, well, many people would say, well, I'm sorry that they're poor, but I worked hard, and they should do the same. And if they work hard, they can cross over from the poor side over to the wealthy side like we have, which is shown in this picture. And then I say, well, you know what, this is actually happening. A lot of people are now following the American dream, certainly the modern version, which is all about consumption and having more stuff. And I look what's happening in China, in India, and just showing that both countries have succeeded in raising hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, and how they're becoming consumers like America. And then this slide here shows some very basic back-of-the-napkin math that, the world cannot sustain too many more Americas. And we have a profound, basic laws of physics that are going to come to play very soon. And then graphically, again, just trying to show that, much of the world lived a very simple lifestyle where only a relatively small population lived very, very high consumptive lifestyle. And even that would fail eventually. But now what we see happening is that hundreds of millions of people are now crossing over, and they're living the same lifestyle that we have. They want all the same stuff, and that's going to cause a big problem. And then looking at solutions, the idea is that got to change the view that we have of the world. It's not an empty world, which helps sort of drive a lot of economic theory and a lot of other the way we organize our society. The idea when you live in a full world, the scale of human society is pushing the outer limits of what the planet can sustain. And the basic message is that exponential growth cannot go on forever in a finite planet, and that's the bottom line key message. Growth is not sustainable. And then looking at what does society with the future look like, and I map out some broad stroke ideas in terms of shifting from fossil fuels to renewable energy, looking at efficiency and this idea and ethic of conservation, which is key to sort of change our whole approach to how we develop. And then also touching on the idea, I realize some people aren't going to be moved or not going to buy the environmental argument. And so I also look at it from a point of view, these represents opportunities. If we make these changes, this can transform and revitalize our economy. It can help us make us energy independent. We can have cleaner and healthier lives, and I explore those in a bit more detail. And then I just try and bring it home in terms of people always say, okay, but what can I do? And I just try and map out, A, we need to change our lives at the personal level in terms of our homes. That's essential, but it's also not sufficient. Certainly not right now. We need to transform our society, and talking about the importance of how you impact at the community level, state level, and national level. And then the last slide I end with is just this, again, drive home the idea that, a model based on exponential growth cannot work. And even if we make the transition away from fossil fuels, be more efficient, bring renewable energy, we will still not be sustainable unless we redefine our relationship with nature. And because infinite growth is not sustainable. And so that's the presentation, and I hope I will get to present it for you. So thank you very much.